Welcome to Sleepy Classic Tales. Today, we are listening to a calm, short retelling of a work that is brief, intense, and lingers long after it ends. Signalman Thiel by Gerhart Hauptmann, published in 1888. A story about duty, isolation, and the slow breaking of a human being. Part 1. Signalman Thiel lives a quiet, strictly ordered life. His days follow a fixed rhythm that allows almost no deviation. He guards a section of the railway line, day after day, in every weather, at every hour. For him, this work is not merely a profession, but a service to which he is devoted with complete dedication. Thiel is a simple man, calm, conscientious, almost pedantic. Everything in his life is directed toward order. The signals must be set correctly, the tracks clear, every movement precise. For him, mistakes are not small matters, but dangers. The train shows no mercy, and therefore Thiel allows no negligence within himself. He was once married. His first wife was quiet, frail, and gentle, and in her presence Thiel found a form of peace that suited his nature. After her death, only their son Tobias remained, a weak and sensitive child. Thiel loves him in a quiet, almost shy way. He does not show his affection openly, yet it is deep and unshakable. When Thiel marries again, his life changes noticeably. His second wife, Lena, is the opposite of the first. She is strong, loud, assertive, and not inclined to subordinate herself. Where Thiel remains silent, she speaks. Where he organizes, she pushes. Her will governs the household, and Thiel submits, not out of conviction, but out of habit. Tobias does not fit into this new order. The child is frail, often ill, and Lena's impatience falls heavily upon him. Thiel sees what is happening, yet he does not intervene. Between his duty as a father and his need for order, a quiet conflict arises that he cannot resolve. Instead, he withdraws inwardly. His signalman's hut becomes his refuge. There, between rails and signals, he feels secure. The railway is predictable, reliable, strictly regulated. Unlike his home, it knows clear rules, and in those rules, Thiel finds stability. Yet, while he continues to perform his duty with unchanged precision, something within him begins to shift. The separation between work and life grows sharper, and what he suppresses accumulates silently. Outwardly, everything is still in order. But beneath that order, a tension is growing that cannot be restrained forever. Thiel's daily routine remains unchanged on the surface. He rises early, performs his duties with the same exactness as always, and returns in the evening to the house that no longer feels like home. Lena sets the tone, loud and unyielding. Her voice fills the rooms, while Thiel remains silent and works. Tobias lives quietly beside them. The child is slight, often tired, and instinctively withdraws. Thiel watches him with growing concern. He recognizes the harshness with which Lena treats the boy, and he senses that Tobias suffers under it. Yet, each time he wishes to intervene, something holds him back. It is not fear, but a deep inner rigidity, a clinging to order at any price. Tension grows between Thiel and Lena, though it remains unspoken. She demands more of him, more money, more effort, more adjustment. Thiel obeys without contradiction. He believes that peace can be achieved only through yielding. Yet this peace is deceptive. It merely conceals what is growing inside him. At work, Thiel becomes a different person. There, he speaks to himself, murmurs prayers, repeats procedures like rituals. The railway becomes something larger than a technical system. It stands for reliability, for an order that is not negotiated. Trains come and go, independent of human weakness. This regularity calms him. More and more often, Thiel takes Tobias with him to his post. He believes he can offer the boy protection there. Between the rails, far from Lena's gaze, Tobias seems freer, almost cheerful. Thiel notices this change and feels a quiet satisfaction. For a short time, he believes he has found a balance. Yet, even at the railway, not everything is under control. The speed of the trains, the force of the machines, the relentlessness of technology demand the highest attention. Thiel knows this better than anyone. And yet his concentration begins to shift. Thoughts intrude, images from the house, from the life he cannot organize. At night, his sleep becomes restless. Dreams merge with memories, prayers with accusations. He hears voices that are not there and sees faces that seem to accuse him. For now, he can still push it aside by clinging to his rules, but it costs him increasing effort. The boundary between duty and personal suffering grows blurred. What Thiel once kept strictly separate begins to mix, and while he continues to set signals and allow trains to pass, he does not yet realize that this inner disorder will soon have consequences, not only for himself, but for all who depend on his sense of duty. Summer brings no relief. The days are long, the work heavier, and Thiel's inner unrest continues to grow. Tobias spends more time with him at the railway, and Thiel convinces himself that he is doing the boy a kindness. He does not see that he is also exposing him to new danger. Lena tolerates these outings only reluctantly. She regards Tobias as a burden, an obstacle in her daily life. Her impatience shows openly, in harsh words and rough gestures. Thiel notices it, yet he does not respond. Instead, he retreats even more deeply into his duties. Order becomes his last defense against a life that is slipping away from him. At work, his strictness increases. He checks the tracks repeatedly, repeats movements that are already precise. Colleagues notice his absence of mind, his rigid stare, the murmuring that accompanies him. Yet no one confronts him. Thiel is considered reliable, almost infallible. Precisely for that reason, he is not questioned. One day, a minor irregularity occurs on the line. Nothing dramatic, merely a moment of inattention that is quickly corrected. But for Thiel, it feels like a warning. He is startled by himself, by the brief instant in which his thoughts were not on the railway. The idea that he might fail because of his inner conflict disturbs him deeply. At the same time, Tobias's condition worsens. The child seems exhausted, fearful, clinging to his father. Thiel feels affection, but also a growing helplessness. He loves his son, yet he does not know how to protect him. Every thought of open confrontation with Lena remains unspoken. In quiet moments, Thiel begins to pray. Not aloud, not ceremoniously, but like an inner whisper. He asks for order, for clarity, for the strength to keep everything in its place. But the more he prays, the more clearly he senses that prayer does not alter reality. The railway remains relentless. The trains run punctually, day after day, at the same speed. They allow no error, no distraction. Thiel knows this, and yet he increasingly approaches the limit of his attention. Thoughts of Tobias, of Lena, of the life beyond the rails intrude. Slowly, a feeling begins to form within him that he does not know and cannot name. It is a mixture of fear and anger, of duty and suppressed despair. For now, he holds everything together. For now, the order still functions. But the tension that is built up within him is already searching for an outlet. The day on which everything falls out of balance begins without incident. Thiel performs his duties as always, checks the line, sets the signals, counts the minutes. Tobias is with him, sitting in the grass near the tracks, playing quietly. Thiel keeps him in sight, convinced that out here everything is safer than at home. Yet safety is deceptive. Lena appears unexpectedly. Her presence brings unrest even before she speaks. She seems irritated, impatient, as if she had brought the boy only reluctantly. Thiel senses the tension at once, but as so often, he lacks the courage to confront it. Instead, he tries to restore order by focusing even more intensely on his work. A train is expected. Thiel knows the dangers, the times, the procedures. He gives instructions, tells Lena to watch Tobias. But his words fade. Lena is distracted, inattentive, annoyed by the situation. Tobias moves as children do, thoughtless, curious, without understanding the power of the approaching machine. For a brief moment, Thiel's attention is divided. A signal, a sound, a thought. It is enough. When he turns back to Tobias, it is too late. The train rushes forward, relentless, loud, faster than any human reflex. What follows leaves no time for thought. The accident is brutal and final. Tobias dies on the tracks, in the place where Thiel believed him safe. The railway that gave him order and stability becomes the site of loss. Lena screams. People run toward them, but for Thiel, everything seems erased. He stands there, unable to comprehend what has happened. Something breaks within him. Not loudly, not visibly, but deeply and silently. The world he so carefully ordered collapses. Duty, work, faith, all lose meaning in this moment. After the accident, Thiel appears numb. He speaks little, moves mechanically, performs his tasks like an automaton. The railway still demands precision, and he delivers it, but inwardly, nothing remains in its place. The death of the child has left a void that cannot be closed. At night, Thiel sits awake, staring into the darkness, still hearing the thunder of the train. Images return, unceasing and cruelly clear. Tobias's face, Lena's voice, the feeling of helplessness. He begins to hear voices that accuse and drive him forward at the same time. The order in which he believed is destroyed, and from that destruction, something new begins to grow, something unpredictable. Thiel still stands upright, but within him a force has been released that can no longer be suppressed. After Tobias's death, Thiel changes visibly. His steps grow slower, his gaze emptier. He speaks rarely, responds mechanically, as if each word were an effort. Those around him notice the transformation, yet no one knows how to approach him. They leave him alone, perhaps out of pity, perhaps out of uncertainty. Lena, however, becomes restless. She senses that something is working within Thiel, something she cannot control. Her former dominance loses its effect. Words that once silenced him now fall meaningless. He hears her, yet she no longer reaches him. He returns to the railway, almost obsessively devoted to his work. There, everything is still in its place. The signals function, the schedules hold, the trains follow their course. Thiel clings to this order as if it could protect him from what is growing inside him. Yet work no longer heals him. It merely covers what is boiling beneath the surface. At night, images appear before him. Tobias stands silently, with a gaze that needs no accusation. Thiel hears the voice of his first wife, gentle and quiet, as if reminding him of something forgotten. These visions merge with prayers, with thoughts of guilt and failure. Sleep brings no rest, only new torment. Gradually, Thiel begins to look at Lena with different eyes, no longer as a wife, no longer as part of his daily life, but as the source of his misfortune. He recalls every moment in which Tobias suffered under her, every silence in which he himself failed. These memories assemble into a picture clearer than anything before. Within Thiel, a conviction matures that he does not question. For him, it is not an idea, but a realization. He does not see himself as a perpetrator, but as an instrument of a higher order. Something must be restored, something must be atoned for, and only he can do it. Lena notices the change. She sees the strange expression in his eyes, the rigid silence that unsettles her. But her usual harshness no longer helps. Her words bounce off him. Her authority is powerless. For the first time, she feels fear herself. Thiel now moves like someone who has made a decision. He appears calm, almost composed. The inner turmoil gives way to a dangerous clarity. The voices in his head do not fall silent, but they no longer push him. They confirm what he already believes he knows. What was once order has become justification. And as Thiel continues on his path, no one suspects that he is approaching the final step. A step that will end everything. Outwardly, Thiel appears composed. His movements are calm, almost deliberate. No one suspects how firm his resolve has become. He speaks little, yet when he does, his words sound clear and without doubt. It is as though something within him has been arranged after long confusion. The voices that tormented him at night have changed. They no longer shout or demand. They confirm. Thiel experiences this as relief. For him, it is a sign that he has recognized the right path. Guilt and hesitation give way to a dark certainty. Lena watches him with growing fear. She barely recognizes the man she lives with. His silence is no longer submissive, but alien. His gaze is empty and yet penetrating. But she finds no access to him. Every attempt to provoke or control him remains ineffective. Thiel continues his work. He sets the signals, checks the line, counts the minutes. The railway demands precision, and he delivers it as always. But now this sense of duty has a different character. It is no longer escape, but preparation. Everything he does follows an inner plan. In his thoughts, religious ideas blend with the need for balance. Thiel believes that order must exist not only on the tracks, but in life, and he is convinced that he failed by not protecting Tobias. This guilt, he believes, can only be balanced through action. One evening he returns home earlier than usual. Lena is surprised, almost suspicious. Thiel speaks calmly to her, almost kindly. This kindness unsettles her more than any harshness. She senses that something is imminent without being able to name it. What follows happens quickly and without resistance. Thiel does not act in a moment of rage, but with terrifying calm. For him, it is not a crime, but a necessary act. In his mind, it feels like the completion of a thought long matured. When it is over, Thiel stands still. He feels neither relief nor triumph, only emptiness. The act has healed nothing, brought nothing back. Yet this realization reaches him only later. That same night, he leaves the house and returns to his section of railway. There, between rails and signals, he feels once again as if he belongs. The order of the railway receives him as though nothing has happened. For a moment, Thiel believes he is back in his place. But what he has done cannot be integrated into any system. It remains, and it will have consequences. The next morning, Thiel is found at his post. He sits quietly on a bench, gazing at the tracks as if expecting the next train. His clothing is neat, his posture upright. To anyone who sees him, it might appear that he is performing his duty as always. Yet something is different. He does not respond when addressed. His eyes follow movement, yet they recognize nothing. Words do not reach him. The order to which he adhered his entire life still exists outwardly. Inwardly, it has collapsed. Thiel is taken away, not with force, but with cautious restraint. He does not resist. It is as though he has left his place without noticing it himself. The railway continues to operate. The trains run as scheduled. The world functions, even without him. In the institution to which he is brought, Thiel often sits for hours in silence. Sometimes his lips move, forming quiet words no one understands. Names surface. Prayers. Fragments of sentences that repeat themselves. Tobias. Order. Duty. The doctors observe him, take notes, judge. For them, Thiel is a case, an example, a result of overstrain and inner collapse. For them, what happened can be explained. For Thiel himself, there is no explanation left, only repetition. His former life exists only in scattered images, rails in sunlight, the sound of an approaching train, a child sitting quietly in the grass. Everything else has vanished or lost its meaning. Thus ends the life of a man who always wished to act correctly, who believed that order could hold everything together, who never learned to oppose, to protect, to decide. His sense of duty was flawless, yet it could not save him from himself. The railway continues. The signals stand correctly. The trains keep to their schedule. Only Signalman Thiel is no longer part of that order. And with that, today's story comes to an end. Perhaps you are now wondering how our short version differs from Gerhart Hauptmann's original text, what role the railway truly plays, whether it is merely a workplace or a symbol of an unforgiving system, and how typical this story from 1888 is of its era and of Hauptmann himself. We explore these and other questions in our accompanying book, Golden Pages, Volume 2. You will find the link in the description. Good night, and if you like, we will listen to each other again tomorrow on Sleepy Classic Tales.